Well, hello, everybody. It's Paris Prokopis, and this is the Paris Prokopis Show. And I'm way off center here. Let's adjust myself a little bit. It is the day after Election Day. We know the outcome of the election. I'm so excited. Actually, not. Uh, it was obviously a very long night, not completely unexpected. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. What I felt was the winners, the losers, and the ultimately the just my observations and everything. It was, needless to say, a very, very crazy night. I don't know. So are you guys able? Yeah, Ed saying 2020 has not disappointed. No, it is not. Although we kind of expected the cluster because we had the cluster back in 2016 as well. Hello, Carolina. Hello, Shannon. Yeah, I call BS on the whole election. Well, somewhat not, but believe it or not, there are some silver linings here. So just bear with me a little bit. It's always incumbent on me to try to find the, what would you say, the silver lining in any difficult situation. And everything. And I'm going to have Jackie come on tonight. Jacqueline, she's been on the show before. She texted me today saying she was having a heart attack. So I had to talk her off a cliff. I think she was threatening to take one of her kids deep into the forest and then beat them with a tuna fish or something. It was terrible, but no, we got her off the cliff. She's all good now. So we got her on Prozac and we're very happy. So I'm so kidding, but I'll bring Jackie on a little bit. Yes, there are some silver linings and it's golden. Yes. Ed, I love the attitude. So I'm going to bring on Jackie here. Hello, Jacqueline.
Hello.
Hello. I never asked you this before, but do you prefer Jacqueline or Jackie or Yochek or whatever? You know, you tell me. Whatever.
Nothing, no profanities.
No profanities. Well, that's right. Hello, Kimberly. How are you? I've had I had my friend Stephanie on, and I was talking to Tracy in my comments, and then I started calling her Stacy because I got the oh yes, I do that occasionally. So what a night, huh?
Yeah, I say so. I don't think anyone went to bed until at least like 3:30 this morning. At least I did. I was up. And then somehow when we went to sleep, we wake up and there's in Wisconsin 120,000 votes for Biden only. So
yeah, I was like, where did that come from?
Okay. Like
they're all mail-in ballots. Oh yeah, they're all naturally Democrats. I call BS.
So, but there is some silver lining though. There's a couple of huge victories that happened that I think are super notable. I was listening to some of the exit pollings and different people that have been reporting on it. That has been a historic high for different minority groups to vote Republican. It's incredible. There's been, it was like 13% more white women voted for Trump this year than in 2016. It was like 17 or 18% of African-American men, 13% of African-American women. I'm just rattling off the about numbers. So don't like fact check me and be like, oh my gosh, no, it's 12%. But it was a substantial amount. And then in Florida, their Republican Party is made up of almost 50% Latinos. And
yep, that's huge.
See that. And there was one other thing that I thought was really cool or ironic or funny, whatever, kind of because I'm a female. But he lost votes, 5% of white men. And I think this is notable because he wasn't appealing to white men.
He wasn't
trying to. And so someone had commented on this and said, well, if he would have paid attention to his foundation, his base, he wouldn't have lost that 5%. I'm like, you're not impressed, sir. I think white men have had it pretty good. You don't always need the attention.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes other people do. And he spoke to them. And so whether he wins or doesn't.
I need the attention.
You may.
I
We
do.
could probably fit you into some kind of group, though, being all
Oops.
Greek and everything.
Oh, that was weird. My camera got all weird on me. There we go. Yes.
But yeah,
So
so I thought it was really notable. I thought it was pretty awesome for that. It was really encouraging to see that because that's what I've been campaigning and what I've been saying to back my support for the president is that he is reaching the oppressed. He is seeing racial divide. He has seen opportunities that have not been available to certain demographics,
and
and
he's
he's made
listening.
that available. Women-owned businesses are flourishing. Minority businesses are flourishing. So these are things that are huge. So whether there's a win or a loss, by the end of the month, I think that it's notable and it's something that Republicans should be really, really proud about.
Oh yeah. Well, and another thing. I mean, this is. Okay, I'm going to go into silver lining here. It was a great night for Republicans, actually, because we were expecting. I mean, remember the media, the polls were all saying this is going to be a complete, utter shellacking against President Trump,
Yeah.
and it'll be a referendum on Trump, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm telling, it's like, okay, first of all, the blue wave never happened.
No.
And the fact that we kept the Senate, that is gargantuan.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Let's say something
This
happens.
is the best worst case scenario.
Yeah. The worst case scenario is the fact that President Harris, if that were to happen,
right. Yeah.
Dear God, I refuse to acquiesce that. I mean, a lot of people say you must be giving up. No, I'm a realist. Yeah. There's a path for either man to win. Mm-hmm. Notice how I did that on purpose for either man to win. Kamala. Yeah. Anyway, but
I can't with you. I'm drinking the vitamin C. My allergies are killing me. So.
Oh yeah, I've got a lot. It's the sudden warm weather. It's affecting my son too. But
I actually have an allergy to fraud. So I woke up this morning just all allergic.
Oh, so it got worse the minute you got on my show, right? You're allergic to fraud.
No,
I don't.
This morning.
Thanks.
It's been going like this since this morning. I woke up like, what is happening to my face? I'm like all swollen. I'm like, oh my gosh, it must be fraud. I'm allergic to it. Turn on the news. Sure enough.
Yep. And now, obviously Arizona is showing some progress for President Trump. And they're saying their people are saying that he should be. There's like 400,000. Yep. Oh, Charles, thank you for bringing that up. I was looking for my stats. I had them pulled up, but I must have closed my window. Yep. Maricopa County has 420,000 outstanding votes and 600. There's 1 million votes outstanding. And they're thinking the conventional wisdom is saying that Trump could actually end up winning Arizona by 30,000 votes or more.
Yeah.
And people seem to forget back in 2016, Arizona was kind of a moot point because Trump won.
Yeah.
But Arizona, I think it took like 2.5 weeks for them to get their results.
Yeah, it's been shifting. I was looking to, because I've never really paid attention more than I have this year to going, okay, well, we know that, New York's going to be blue. We know that California it's going to be blue. But then if you look at it's not that big of a margin difference. If you look at New York, it was closer than I thought. Like I look at Washington or the DC and I see 5% Republican. I was expecting to see something like that in New York, really, like 15 or 20% red. I'm talking like 46 or 38, or, it's like right in there.
Performed everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And he really did. Unfortunately, like Wisconsin. Okay. Back in 2018, I was I'm forever the pragmatist. I waited to find out what the circumstances were with those where suddenly Scott Walker was behind by 30,000 votes. It happened like that because Milwaukee had issue. And I asked Bob Spindell. He's the conservative voice of the election commission there. Now he's on the statewide version. But he said that what had happened is they had shipped out all the absentee ballots with envelopes that were smaller than the ballot. So what was happening is there was such a tight fit. So then when they were using the cutter to open up the envelope, they were cutting the ballot. So they had to remake a whole buttload of ballots. So he said there was nothing nefarious. But okay, shame me once, shame on you, shame me twice, shame on me. It's too much of a coincidence for all of a sudden, here's another 100,000 votes for Milwaukee after all the votes have been counted.
Yeah, and I don't want to jump to conclusion, be like, oh wow, 103% of Wisconsin showed up. But what is that? Is that people that registered at the polls? Are they now counted as someone who showed up and voted, and their registration is being processed? Or is this something different? I don't want to jump to that and think that's just a bunch of fraud. Like, it very well could be. I'm not ruling that out. But who are those people who show up to register?
Yep. And there, how many of those 200,000 people that aren't supposed to be on the voter rolls actually had votes cast in their name?
Right.
So, because they know the list, and the election commission, and that's on my list of losers in Wisconsin, especially the election commission. Mm-hmm. First of all, they did everything they could to help Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Getting rid of the Green Party.
I got from my house. The voter information centers, they were just sending out stuff slamming Trump every week. And towards last week, it was every day. We got something else in the mail that was just slamming Trump. You're supposed to be nonpartisan. You're supposed to just be like voter information. Here's some information you might want to know.
Conveniently nonpartisan. That's what I always call them. But there's, the fact that they took off the Green Party, the fact that got rid of Kanye West, all things that would have affected Biden. But of course, they didn't go after the Libertarian because they knew that affected the Republicans. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, they're the others. They're another on my list of losers. Mm-hmm. Even though Jo Jorgensen only got like 1% for the most part, 1.5% versus the 3% that her predecessor did, or him, or her, whatever. But excuse me, that was the difference in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
In Wisconsin.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I don't give a crap about your principles. You could be principled all the way to the bread line.
Yeah. Well, I know people that are like just writing in Mickey Mouse. Like, just don't even go. Like, why are you even going? Just to irritate me personally, I think. Tell me about it.
And I've done
don't
that.
tell me about it then. I don't want to know. And I get the movement to vote for Joe and move away from a two-party system. Like, I get the movement behind it, but you got to have some traction for execution. You don't have the traction.
Yep.
Because you don't protect military.
And they'll be willing to give the power to Kamala Harris all to prove a point.
Right.
Because we need perfection. What good is being so principled if you accomplish nothing? That's my problem. So they're another list of losers, but the Libertarians, they got 30-some thousand votes in Wisconsin and everything else. But on a good note, though, like I said, we still have control of the Senate. That was huge. Mitch McConnell, I give you kudos. I used to hate the guy. I thought it was ineffective when Bonnier was still there on John Boehner was on the House side, and this before Paul Ryan, and I really hate Paul Ryan. Next loser coming down my list. Paul Ryan is now on the board of Fox News. And Fox News has had a major, major, major shift. And Fox News...
Would it have anything to do with Disney buying them last year? Does that have anything to do with it, you think?
Disney and Paul Ryan is, his wife is a Democrat lobbyist, for crying out loud, but he was the savior of everything. But, which is sad because he came into Congress as an Ayn Rand conservative. And then he just, I don't know what happened to him. The power got to him, and that, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Yeah. But he's on the board, and we see, okay. Arizona, here we are early on in the night.
I don't want to talk about Arizona. That's my home state. I don't even want to talk about it. I text my sisters, my mom, I'm like, what happened to you guys? What did you do?
That's my home state as well. And I just, when they called Arizona on Fox News, no one else had called them at that point. They called Arizona, and Arizona wasn't even done voting. They were holding off, and all the media was holding off on calling Georgia, North Carolina, Florida. What I mean, the decision. I use Decision Desk HQ, which is a good source for vote tallies and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, Florida is done. I mean, 200,000 votes in Florida is huge and everything like that. And so I sat back and all of a sudden, it's like, why aren't they calling Florida? Why aren't they calling Florida? They should be calling Florida. If it was Joe Biden ahead, they would have called it hours before.
Well, that's what's going on with Pennsylvania. Like,
yep, they were trying to suppress the vote.
We have 99.999% of the votes in, but we still need to just make sure. I think there might be one hiding somewhere. One more vote. There's one more vote somewhere.
And this is more media manipulation. Yep. And then, Ed, you're right. They called Virginia with 1% of the vote in.
Mm-hmm.
We knew Virginia was going to be close. There was no way they could have called Virginia that quickly.
Well, they called it Arizona, and I'm watching. I'm like, how did it get done so fast? It was never done that fast.
Never.
Like 9 o'clock. you know?
And that's when I started remembering back in 2016.
But either way, it was early.
Yeah. They couldn't even get us straight 2016.
70% of the vote in.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, it didn't help that McSally was just an absolutely horrible Senate candidate, so that didn't help at all. But I think I'm cautiously optimistic about Arizona. We're seeing the shift in numbers now. I hope it ends up being enough. Wisconsin's done. Wisconsin is lost. There is, people are thinking, oh, we're doing a recount. You're not going to make up 20,000 votes. It's just not going to happen unless they all of a sudden see a batch of ballots that have the same, that look like they're photocopied or something like that.
Right.
And then it can challenge those. But the reality is Wisconsin is done.
Smaller margin. If it was like 800 votes in a county or something,
oh yeah,
you'd definitely see a recount, but not 20,000.
Media manipulation is like having the COVID. Yeah, no kidding. But that's okay. Texas is leaning blue. Yeah, this is the whole thing. They wouldn't call Texas, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knew Texas was going to be fine.
Yep.
They wouldn't call Texas. Usually Texas is called the minute
the polls open.
Yeah. And then
it's like, wait, we haven't even closed the polls yet. It's like, that's okay. If you don't need to vote, we're red.
Yeah. Guess what? They haven't closed yet. They haven't called yet. Other than the obvious, Alaska.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The minute the polls close in Alaska, they always call Alaska, and it's always Republican. Just like Hawaii is always Democrat.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They called Hawaii, but they haven't called Alaska.
Just being patient, because it's going to be what it's going to be. And if it ends up in the courts, then that's where we're at. But I think there is another thing that we've learned from this, though, and that is that Republicans are lazy.
Yeah.
Okay. We wait till the last minute. We're in the fourth quarter of the game, or fifth, or how many quarters are in your guys' sports. You wait until that last minute, and then you're trying to sprint. For the last several months, how many people have you called? How many events have you gone to? How many, how involved are you getting your friends and family and explaining what these things mean, what these policies mean, and what they mean to you, what they mean to the party? Have we been doing our fair share of education for 4 years? No, we won. And we're like, sweet, we're good. And then we sit back for 4 years and then get really upset, So that was something that we were talking about with my sister's mom and everyone in Arizona, was just that, these next 4 years, I need you guys to get up, all of you, not just my sisters, but everybody. We need to wake up. We need to be proactive, because the Democrats are proactive. Democrats have been moving people from California to Arizona for the last 4 years.
Oh yeah.
They are wicked smart. They're playing chess, and we're throwing a tennis racket.
We're reacting.
Trying to play football.
Well, and it's sad seeing how many people, Minneapolis and Minnesota, overwhelmingly Democrat, and no question about it, even with all the police violence and stuff like that. The Wisconsin assembly races, and several of them, Bonnie Lee, she lost in Wauwatosa, where there was violence. Rob Hutton was a gain for the Democrats.
Yep.
and now we got a flake, and I always struggled with Robin Vining. It's like, because I know her personally, her kid and my kid are the same age, one of my kids and stuff like that. She's a nice lady, she really is, but I just don't want her in the assembly. But she won, and they threw a boatload of money at her race, and the Republican Party kind of left Bonnie Lee. She raised $200,000 on her own. She made all these phone calls, raised $200,000 on her own, busted her butt.
Yeah, well, that's, even in Kenosha, we had Ed Hibash and Crystal Miller. I helped do a lot of her campaign stuff and door knocking and lit drops. Like, we were doing that on the weekends for her. And I don't understand how. You were downtown in Kenosha cleaning when the riots were finished. She was so proactive and had so much energy, and she didn't win. And so we have two, but they were filled with Democrats before, so they're still, just sitting there.
Well, I'm gonna bring Ed Delgado onto the show now. Have you been on with Ed? No, you haven't. Oh, okay. Now we're gonna surround you with testosterone. Usually you have me surrounded with estrogen. So we'll bring on there. Now Ed Delgado, he's from kind of west of Oshkosh and all that, out in the sticks and boonies.
I wish I knew where that was.
Yeah,
sounds
north.
Great.
North and west. I'm gonna bring him on.
He's like, oh, it's just north, south, east, west. I'm like, I'm not like lowest part, like right or left. That's.
Well, we'll tell you where to go. No, Ed is known as the Carmel conservative. He doesn't know what he is. He's part Puerto Rican, part Mexican, part what else? Are you part Japanese too, or?
No, but my ex-wife was like a quarter Japanese, and apparently my son did like a 23andMe, and he's like 6% Nigerian. So I don't know what that makes me, but whatever. Goonie goon, right? Goonie goon goon, whatever. It's all good.
Oh, that Goody Goo Goo. Yeah, no, that's before Jackie's time. So, but
I didn't know if you were mumbling or what. I wasn't sure what that
was. He was mumbling. So
I don't know.
Obviously, Ed, you've heard some of the conversation and everything like that. What were you seeing up by you in your neck of the woods? How did your assembly candidates do and stuff like that?
Well, Glenn Grothman, he crushed it. He crushed it. So we're good to go as far as that's concerned. I can't remember the young lady. She's out of Appleton, and her first name's Rachel. I know she's part of the assembly now at this particular point, of course. And I live in Waushara County. So basically, if you were to take a dart and throw it toward, the center area, you'll hit us. We have like Hispanic people around here. No, we got more than that, but it was very strong Republican, but not as strong as it was in the past. And, this is one of those things where I talked about where there's a lot of people on the left that have moved up here from the Milwaukee, Madison liberal strongholds. And these are folks that bring their really piss poor voting hat them into these rural communities. And out in this area, I have seen more Biden-Trump signs or Biden sign, Hillary signs here in the past, back in 2016. But he carried this county very strong. But obviously, Milwaukee, Dane County, these are areas that obviously pushed Wisconsin more into the blue area.
Excuse me. Well, Milwaukee County was very.
By the way,
what?
I was gonna say Jackie gave the best electoral map that I saw in the last 2-3 days. It was incredible. I saw it, but she posted it and I had to share it. And it was basically like a map of the United States, and some kid had like 700 crayons and just went nuts on it. And I was like, that is better than what Nate Silver at 538 put out. Like, they're more accurate. This child.
This is pretty accurate.
It was awesome.
Well, the one guy
It
I
really
have
was.
one guy in the media because we were watching we were watching Fox News, and I was like, I couldn't believe I was watching Fox News. It's like they look like they're at a funeral. They don't want to call anything for Trump or whatever. But the guy who was actually, I don't know if you guys were watching Fox News, but the guy who was manning the board, he was pushing the states and expanding them and stuff like that. Now he did a really good job of explaining what needs to happen, what happened in 2016, and he was. It was almost like he was saying, it's like, okay, guys, are you sure we should be calling Arizona? I mean, he was like challenging people, and because he was trying to be more even-handed.
I think that when I'm watching anything, and everyone is agreeing, there's a problem. Someone's lying. Human beings do not agree this often. So if you're saying you're just going to call something and no one's challenging that,
No.
Even if the challenge is wrong, there's got to be a different voice. There's just got to.
There always has to be a check on these people, and that's, I mean, the media as a whole are the biggest losers, and social media as well, because of the fact that they're. By the way, everybody, here's the map. This is the map that about sums it up. So, but
epic.
Yeah, the media having so much power and so much control, and that's the whole thing. Right now, I'm usually a pragmatist. Okay, it's like, okay, well, and I said this earlier. If Joe Biden wins fairly and he legitimately got to 270 on his own, I may not like it, but that's how our country works. Congratulations, Mr. President.
So you wouldn't try to recall him, like if you didn't like the governor?
Right. Absolutely not. But
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but considering all the things that you had, social media, President Trump's tweets are gone from yesterday. They're gone.
Right.
And you've got manipulation happening all over the place. They're refusing to call states in order to give him or to limit Donald Trump's legitimacy. No other reason.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, so, and then all these, ballots suddenly showing up out of middle of nowhere, the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania.
It bothers me the most, I think. Like, I can handle, like, every year, even like my first year ever voting at 18, there was always there's fake ballots and dead people are voting, and that those are always going to be concerns. And so you take them with a grain of salt. I'm sure they happen every year. We're not always going to catch them. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. My biggest issue is the amount of ballots that came in at one time in an hour that were not, like, even if there was just like 5 Joe votes, I don't care, like, who, like, Joe, whatever, Jurgen or whatever, Jurgens, I don't know.
Jorgensen.
Jorgensen.
If
it was anyone. but it wasn't. It was all Biden.
Yeah.
Every single one.
What's that, like 118,000 votes in Michigan? It was like 118,000 to 0.
And it wasn't just in one state that happened. It wasn't just in one area.
Yeah, it's not possible.
It's just not. And the thing is, and it doesn't matter who would be campaigning or who that vote would, like, if that were Trump that just had all those mysterious votes, I would still be very concerned.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be in my favor. I'm not going to say that it wouldn't. But I would be concerned about the manipulating of our systems for personal gain, regardless if it affects me or not, or if I like the outcome or not. You don't do that. That's why I didn't sign a recall Evers. I don't like Evers. He was voted in fair and square. We respect it. He didn't have, it wasn't treason. It wasn't any reason that he would need to be impeached or something. It's not something like that. He made a bad judgment call, which was on top of many bad judgment calls. He's going to get voted out.
Yeah, you can make the argument that he's affecting rights and stuff like that, but you have to temper it with common sense because of the fact that look what it did to the Democrats when they recalled Scott Walker. They're using the example of Gray Davis in California. Well, it worked in California. Well, it didn't work in Wisconsin.
No, it didn't.
The Democrat Party it took them almost a decade to recover from that recall.
Well, that and the recalls that I was seeing were not being run by Republicans. not the Facebook ones. There's a couple, like you'll see them on the side of the road, whatever. I'm sure those are great Republicans. But the ones that were on Facebook, and Paris, I invited you to a couple of those groups. Those were not Republican people. Those were people in California. Those were people in Illinois starting Facebook pages for Wisconsin people to recall Evers.
Ed, you were going to say something.
Oh God, I got so much to say. I believed in the recall. I didn't sign the recall because the money thing scared the hell out of me. Obviously, he had a ton of money out of that. But the thing that when it came to the recall, he was warranted a recall. The number of executive actions that Tony Evers had done, and the number of laws that he had broke. I mean, let's just be honest with this. He screwed the pooch when it came to the first executive order for the 60-day lockdown right there. You got 60 days. And if you can't get your shit together in 60 days, then that's it. What are you doing as governor? You screwed up. But yet he kind of went ahead and did more, and he pushed it, and he did it through Andrea Palm and did all that other garbage. But let's forget Tony Evers for a moment, and let's look at what's going on here. Statistically, it's completely impossible to get 100,000 to agree on anything as a consensus and all together. 4 a.m. Now, it's interesting. The fact checkers ended up saying that, oh, no, that's false. Okay. What was it? 401, 359?
Fact checked. We need to know who are the fact checkers. Right. I would like them to pull the mask off real quick. I just want to see who you are. This behind the keyboard thing, it's not really working for me. I've got my doubts.
Right.
They're the infamous they.
And the thing about the fact checkers, right. And the thing about the fact checkers is that we all know that they are an arm of the Democrat Party. So they're going to go ahead and fact check everything. I got fact checked like 4 times. It's ridiculous. But whatever. I don't care. You can fact check it all you want. I'm still going to keep putting that content out there because I want people to know what's what.
But regardless,
go ahead, brother.
I get all that, but I just the timing of it. I just questioned the timing of it was suspect. Yeah. Okay, why was this not launched in March when this first happened? Why did it suddenly get launched in end of June? Mm-hmm. I mean, there are people pissed off and tired of it, but then again, I also was like, we needed to get Trump reelected. Nothing else mattered at that point. And I think it took the focus away. It gave the Democrats, you mentioned money. It gave the Democrats, they started fundraising behind it. Yeah. And guess where they used that money?
Mm-hmm. Dane County. We had the Women for Trump events, and we would have the women sitting in the back of the thing, sign these. And I would just talk like, hey, did you know? They're like, oh, we know about the fundraising. They've got enough money anyways. That's like saying, I don't need to vote because there's
but I need to. Right, but I also need to remind people, though, when you look at when the recall came out there, and Jacqueline, you're in the Kenosha County area, if I recall correctly, it was right after the Kenosha riots. Now, if the stories that were put out there are correct, it was that one young lady, I don't know what her name was, but participated and everything, and she's like, Evers should have brought the National Guard, blah blah blah, whatever. Mm-hmm. I can understand that.
Yeah.
If rioters came to my home right now and I didn't get arrested, because there's a 99.999% probability, like you have like a higher probability, like you could survive COVID better than me actually not getting arrested, because I would get arrested. But
that's only because you like handcuffs, but that's a whole different show.
It's true. Well, I like handcuffs and things that go boom. But you would have a higher people were upset. They were scared. The fact that people were burning down Kenosha proper, I understand why you would want to recall the governor at that particular point. Yeah. And it just didn't coincide correctly when it came to the election, because it's this isn't the right time to do it, but having a baby, when you think about it, is there ever a right time to have a baby? No. You just do.
There's a right time to practice, though. But anyway, I want to reel it in. I don't want to talk about the recall, though. We're getting a little far afield. I mean, I want to get
true.
Yeah, the context of the recall in the sense of these are the things that are happening, and it makes me wonder if I have to say, I think the Democrats were involved with the recall effort in an effort to raise money so they could beat Trump. Yeah. And in an effort to try to keep the Republicans from getting veto proof.
I was suspicious of that. And I don't know if you know anything. There's this game called Among Us. And yeah, I thought somebody like, okay, you're suspect up there. There's something up. That was another thing that prevented me from signing that recall.
The video game?
Yeah, the video game.
Oh, all right.
The whole idea behind Among Us is that there's an imposter. I do, because I have a 9-year-old and he's really big in this. Mm-hmm. But so here's the thing.
I've got a 12 and 14-year-old that play.
Let me lay it out. So you know what's up. So to kind of okay, let me frame it this way here, because I like keeping up with popular culture. My 9-year-old is big into this stuff here, and the reason I keep up with popular culture is because when you look at it, this is the stuff that's entering the brains of our children. In this particular 10 people, it's like craft or whatever, and imposter. This imposter is basically, he's going to go knock somebody off. He's going to kill them, and you have to find out who that is. Now, of course, they say that this person is a suspect, or they call them sus, S-U-S. Well, let's make the analogy to the video game here, because there's a lot of people within the Republican Party itself we're very suspect about. We call them rhinos.
To rephrase,
now, whether or not they're actually strong.
Someone among you is the murderer. It's like the game Clue,
right,
but into a video game. So someone among you is the murderer. But yes.
Basically. Yes. So that's kind of what I was kind of getting at, because when I look at what's going on with this, I believe Evers should have been recalled, but the people that were doing the recall, I was suspicious. I had issue with that. Again, another reason why I did not sign.
Yep, a lot of people.
But I also think it also, as it relates to the presidential election, I think, Paris, you made this point that this might get Evers' base riled up to want to go ahead and vote Biden and down ticket.
Yep. See, I was more in fear of losing the legislative majority in the state. Yeah, they're not perfect. Voss has screwed the pooch a couple times and all that, but they're still better than the Democrats being in charge of everything. And that's that whole cutting your nose off to spite your face mentality. And that's this whole thing. Yeah, Nick is bringing up a point here about the 47,000 ballot drop in the early morning hours of 2018. And I said that we talked about this. I mentioned this earlier, Jackie. It was, I tried to be pragmatic about it, but now it's happened 2 times in a row in major elections. This is a problem. They're dropping the ballots when they know how many they need.
Well, and my neighbor actually brought up
2018 a dry run
comment earlier today that, it's such an obvious, like one of those like duh things. Like, why isn't this a thing? Why isn't there a more strict process? I feel like we're in the year 2020 and we're submitting votes like we live in this, 1700s. Like, what? Why?
Yeah, no kidding.
Why is there not a better process to this? I feel like it's kind of a big deal. We're not voting what pizza toppings we want on a pizza. This is not what color M&M is coming out for 2021. This is a really big deal. So I feel like we need a better system that, we have pollers that are workers, not volunteers. you know, and maybe they volunteer their time, but the class was a 1 hour class in Kenosha, and there was no background check. There wasn't that. So, and maybe I just went through a different place than someone else did, but there was not that for me. And so there needs to be more vetting. There needs to be more training. There needs to be more security. There should be cameras. There should be a lot more going on, you know, and I just think that there should be a way that we could be able to do away with paper and pen.
Mm-hmm. Well, you would think with technology nowadays we'd be able to do it, but have you ever noticed that it's always the Democrats who's like, well, our people are incapable of doing it the way we have it, so now we got to do it. They're too stupid. This is literally what they're saying.
So my friend in Arizona sends me a text message this morning, and she's like, look at this. And her vote, it says online, it was canceled. And then someone goes, well, it just means the computer didn't read it, so they're counting it by hand. Well, I'm sure there's nothing that could go wrong there. Like, do we hear this? It's okay that the computer didn't count it. Now, human beings are going to count it with their hands. And with all, even if I believe that they're all great people, that they would never cheat in their lives, they've never had
screw up.
But humans make flaws. There is a way in the year 2020 to do these things with less chaos.
Well, now we have the question of the markers too. They were handing out Sharpies, which apparently they bleed through the paper ballot, and so they screw up the ballot. And
so one of my girlfriends I grew up with, she inboxed me. She's like, "What is this thing about Sharpies that I keep hearing about?" And I was like, "They were handing out." I was like, "That is what I've heard. I didn't see it with myself. I saw it through Facebook. I saw videos. I saw some things about it. But if you were given a Sharpie," she was like, "That's all they had at the polling place." I was like, "Seriously?" She was, "Yes, they were Sharpies. That's all that they gave us. That's all that they had." I was like, "You need to call." And she went online. Sure enough, her mom, her sister, and herself, and her dad, all their votes were canceled.
Go figure.
There is
I think
something.
that's just amazing.
And if it was canceled and counted by hand,
That's
why
amazing.
would it be canceled? Wouldn't it be resubmitted?
I just think it's amazing that there's still paper ballots out there, because like I live in this like little podunk
want to do away with cars,
right?
You're like, how many trees had to die for this fraud to take place?
Yep.
I live in this little town with like 2,000 people, and like half of the population is prison. You know, there's a medium security prison, like probably about 3/4 of a mile from my house.
Now we know.
So I mean, you know, congressmen love prisons, right? Well, yeah. But what kills me is like they have the electronic thing, you know. So they gave us a pen to sign our name, and then they gave us little stylus, and then like, you know, put the stylus in the little thing. That's actually pretty sweet there. I love Nacho's name. That is awesome.
Sharpie Gate. I like that.
Yeah, Nacho's life's getting back to normal. I'll have you on the show soon. He wants to have me on his show too. So life happened when my dad passed away and stuff like that, and then we weren't able to connect. So I'll get there. All right. So we got Sharpie Gate. We got all this stuff that it's always the Democrats behind it. Have you ever noticed that they don't suddenly find 100,000 votes in the middle of Alabama for Trump, or 100,000 votes for Joe Biden in New York City? It's only in the states that are close, the battlegrounds.
Yep.
And it always favors the Democrats. The only
sense.
Yeah. I only know.
I really believe that most of the people working the polls are honest. Yeah. I don't think a lot of them either know or see or had intent to do that. You know, it's kind of like when we're talking about the coronavirus in the school systems. I'm not talking about the teachers. Not talking about the pollers.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I think that because there's a lot of people that I know that are getting offended. They're like, I was out there. I was honest, you know, and I feel like people are looking at me now, and they are. I work with a lot of people that work the polls. I work with, you know, have a lot of family and friends that are doing this stuff. And they're feeling like, oh my gosh, do people think that I was committing fraud out there? You know, so just so they, you know, we're a poller. I'm not looking at you.
Yeah.
Looking
Well,
at you.
you do have some people with nefarious desires as well. I've had a couple poll people that were. One was our alderman that we just recently got to quit. Thank God. She was wearing an anti-Trump shirt, but it was in Spanish, and it had it's like,
Classy.
yeah, F Trump something or other, and
That makes it okay.
Chinga la Trump or something like that. It was like a crazy thing. But let's see what I hear here. Okay, so here's another thing this is a bad thing. Okay, we are actually living in a situation that has been created by George Soros's $34 billion cash dump into our election this year. $34 billion with a B. He didn't care who won. It wasn't. He cared about dissent. We're in it, and both sides are biting hook, line, and sinker. Biden wins or Trump wins. The other side will not believe it's legitimate.
Yeah, well, that's what I was talking about.
This is war,
actually, because I've got a lot of family that are voting Democrat. I've got a lot more family that are voting Republican, but it gets pretty heated during holidays, that kind of situation. And that was my main thing, like just talking to them today was I'm not as worried now, like at this moment, about actually who gets elected. It's going to be the repercussions of the losing party, whoever it is. I'm not looking at Democrats, I'm not looking at Republicans. Like I feel like Republicans are looking like we're locking and loading, and Democrats are like we're going to burn down your city. So it's like this is not conductive at all.
Yeah, and it's all by design.
Nobody is winning here. To be very clear, no matter what happens, nobody wins. Like that's what this feels like.
Which is kind of against what the Democrats like to do because they think everybody's a winner. But how about you, Ed? Ed, the issue with Ed is usually he's got a little bit of a time lag for whatever reason. He's the only one I have this problem with. But so we got to get that. So what are your thoughts, Ed? You're chopping at the bit to say something. Do you think we're being manipulated?
Yeah, inmates over there.
What?
Tapping into your Wi-Fi, huh?
Why do you gotta do this to me, man? Like seriously, you gotta bring up Soros. I mean, like, I kind of like delve into some of this crazy stuff. There's a theory out there. It's called the 16-year plan, and it started with Obama. Because you remember a lot of things that Obama had said, America's best days were behind us. You guys might recall there was this idea we're transitioning from a manufacturing to a service society. But let's think about this here for a moment. Wealth is only created through value. And value oftentimes is created through actual material things. I could be a server at a restaurant. That's great. I could be the best server in the world, the best maitre d'. We'll use a fancy word that I can't spell. But
you didn't really say
if I am serving you, well, see, you got me there. See, I can't even say it right. But if I am the best server in the world, right? What good is it if there are people that can't afford to go to that restaurant because they don't have coming in because at a particular point they've lost their jobs, manufacturing, doing whatever. Service upon service upon service does not create value, nor does it create wealth. You actually have to have goods. If you take a look what happened during the Obama years in particular, and I remember this goes back as far as the 90s in Milwaukee. If you guys remember, Master Lock and several other companies that started transitioning and moving their companies overseas, Mexico, China, other places like that. Ultimately, the goal for a globalist, George Soros, is to move the manufacturing base to China. Take a look at what's happened over the last day or two in the Chinese stock market. Their stocks are tanking. They have banks that are just suffering right now, just on the possibility that Trump could be reelected. Okay, so when you look at everything that Soros is putting in, and I have to respectfully disagree with you on this, Jacqueline, in the sense that the people on the right, I do not believe, I think they've all locked and loaded, but they are measured. These are individuals that know violence, and they don't want to utilize violence. These are individuals that are former military veterans, militia members, other things like that. They don't want to have to get to that point. However, the individual left, because you don't see militia members going out there destroying towns, burning down cities, anything else like that. But for years, we've seen Antifa do it. We've seen BLM radicals do it. Right, because Ontario and the Proud Boys are just,
storm into the Capitol and rip Biden out of his wheelchair. And I don't think that's what anyone's thinking,
Did you just say wheelchair? I love you. That's funny.
I do know and think that it's a preparation in the back of the minds of what is it going to come to? Has it come to this? Have we gotten to this point that we have to prepare? How far will the left go? How bad is this going to get? And I know in my own mind, not that I'm, wearing a bulletproof vest right now or anything like that, nothing crazy going on, but what I felt in Kenosha, if there's anything like that again, our safety was completely compromised. This was happening a mile and a half from my house. We literally got shot at. It was a terrible, terrible week. We had people staying with us because they didn't want to stay alone. I mean, it was just really bad. And to think that even if Trump pulls through and wins this, for that to happen again is terrifying. But then on the flip side,
and it will happen again.
And Biden gets in, could we be in preparation for something terrible to happen?
They'll be emboldened in a lot of ways. So, I mean, Trump has to pull this off, and we got to figure out a way to do it.
Already suggested and put it out there. It's not in effect, but he's made it very clear that it will be. It's a voluntary gun buyback program. And he was talking about it. He put it out there.
My ass.
It's voluntary, but it is. They've said if Biden and Harris are in, this will become a mandatory thing. We'll pay you for it.
They would have to
for your guns.
That would have to be legislated, and they wouldn't get it through the Senate. Thank God. That luckily we were able to get that.
They're going though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they're patient.
The executive order, that's the other thing, and I think you take a look right now. The radical left, and I'm not going to say liberals anymore because liberals are actually more on the side of conservatives right now. Yeah. It's really kind of scary when you think that you have your classic liberals, you have your pro-choice folks, your LGBTQ, I'm going to stop bagging on them. Like, they're actually more on our side than they are on the radical left. The radical left is actually trying to get rid of civil rights legislation and other things like that. These are folks that they're going to riot and cause hate, havoc, and chaos, regardless of who's going to become elected. If Biden gets in, they're going to continue with their nonsense. Why? Because Biden will capitulate and bargain with them. By bargain, I mean literally give in. Trump, on the other hand, will not. So the violence is coming one way or the other. It's a good word. I can't spell it either. And he probably put it better than I could. But violence is coming one way or another. And I think the thing is that for a lot of us on the right, me personally, speaking for myself and only myself, I'm the type of person that just wants to be left alone. I would much rather be hanging out with my family, sitting here gaming, just acting the damn fool, talking jokes.
Yeah.
But if you push me far enough, it's Bruce Banner. You're not going to like me when I'm mad.
I think that's true for anyone. I don't think anyone wants to be in these situations. I think people feel like they're put in a corner and they have to fight their way out. They're clawing their way out of a situation, whether that information is real or it's not, it's their own truth. It's what they're seeing. It's what they're being fed. and when they feel like they're in that situation, they've got to claw their way out. But I think that our jobs as conservatives right now, my mentor, I was talking to her today, and she texted me back. She said that the fight doesn't stop. Whether Trump wins or loses, the fight doesn't stop. Republicans need to continue liberating the oppressed, continue pouring into these communities, continue doing what we're already doing, what we've already been doing on steroids. Because the difference is we traditionally do things ourselves. We don't recruit people to do it with us. And I had a couple of friends that I brought to different events, and one of the girls I brought was a good friend of mine. I had no idea until this year that she had never voted before. So we're up there. She goes, I think I'm going to need to vote now. I was like, well, had I known that, had I done a poll on Facebook, how many of my friends have never voted before? I don't know. Do you know? Are we asking those questions? Are we talking to them? Are we bringing them with? I think sometimes, especially conservatives, get so shy to say things because you're afraid to sound like an extremist, or you're afraid that you're going to offend somebody, that we don't say, hey, I'm going to a pro-life event this weekend. Who wants to come?
Yeah, I want to check it out. I was doing a lot of that when we were preparing. I started getting more and more people.
Yeah, and we did a lot more of that this year, but we done it for the last 4 years.
Yeah, but there's some. Yeah, exactly. See, they never stop.
They never.
Democrats never stop.
You got to give them credit for that.
We always stop, and then we just wait. We need to keep going. And another thing we got to do, and that's a good segue into something else. The fact that there's a lot of Trump supporters who typically haven't voted in the past and that type of thing, and now they're probably going to get discouraged. Oh, why bother voting? We're not even going to win. That kind of thing. But I got to say this: Wisconsin, even though Biden won, Trump literally got more votes than any Republican in the history of the state yesterday.
It's incredible what he's done. And one of the other notable things to go with that too, though, is immigrants that were able to voted Trump in higher numbers than ever before, not because he was Republican, and not because they weren't Democrat. It's because we're not voting Democrat. It's socialism. Yep. These people have come from a socialist country.
Yeah.
That's what they were leaving.
Their voting values.
So
when I was in line for the Trump rally, waiting for the bus at the Trump rally, I started talking. I noticed this guy had an accent, so we started talking. And he's from Belgrade, Yugoslavia, Serbia, and he said he's been in the United States for 40 years, but it's like my family, we left this behind. We would never want to vote for this.
I've heard that so many times.
And he had the thick accent and all that stuff. We talked about, I know some Serbian dances because I rock that way. But it's telling that they have a different perception. But now Trump has also capitalized. He doubled his black vote, his black support, because he acted. Actions speak louder than the words. And then he, like you were talking about Florida earlier.
Yeah.
50% of the Hispanic vote. 50%.
That's it. Unheard of.
And Florida's a microcosm.
Well, did you see what's going on there in Florida?
No, I've been watching. I just turned.
Did you see what's going on there in Florida? You got the woke BLM people. They're just pissed at like the Hispanic community. It's like, how dare you vote for Trump? And it's like, because we're not a monolith. We don't have group think. Like when they got like all the brown people meeting here last Sunday after church, they didn't give us the talking points. Like we don't do that, but whatever. I love what you guys are saying here though. When it comes to the fact that, let's be honest about it. In the past, Republicans have always been like, we got to be above the fray. We can't fight dirty. No, you got to fight dirty because what is the only fair fight? It's the one that you win. Democrats know this, and they do not rest. I've made this analogy before. These folks are like, say again?
I said I don't agree with that. I'm going to shoot that down.
And that's why you'll lose every time.
You fight it fair, you fight it clean.
But here's the thing. See, the thing is, say again?
I said,
Oh, say I didn't catch. I got
Hard
that
to
5
argue
second
with you when
delay.
you're lagging.
I know it is frustrating, and I do
it's all Ed's
apologize for
fault
that.
too.
No, I'm
But
saying that it's not
it really is.
not a victory. It doesn't feel good to trick someone or to lie about a vote. If you have the votes, you win. And we have to fix the system, not beat the system. Fix it.
Yes,
Make it more honest. Make the campaign trail more honest.
And I agree with you 100% on that. I to lie, we need to steal, we need to do anything like that. But we need to understand that if we're going to win, we need to get into the mud. And for Republicans in particular, sometimes that might mean you have to drop a 4-letter word. Sometimes you got to be real with folks and just speak from the heart and be honest about stuff. And instead of
like
saying, I don't want to offend your feelings.
Trump in about a sentence.
Right. But the problem with Trump, I think, is that he's a little too over the top. So there is a happy medium in there,
Yeah.
And
the thing about Trump, though, he never hid who he was.
So now you're like veering off into that perfectionism.
No, he
again.
didn't.
You're never going to have it, because if you have someone that's a little bit more edgy,
no,
you're going to lose conservatives. You know what I mean?
Is
like
true.
You want
That is
someone
absolutely true.
who can put on a face that is professional at the end of the day, that can, kick it, be real or whatever. And that's great for, like a dinner party or a football party or something. But it's not when you're negotiating peace deals across the country. There's got to be a level of business professionalism.
Right. But clearly he's been effective. I'm taking a look at the 4 different peace deals he's negotiated overseas in the Middle East. So he's got that tack. But the other thing is that Republicans can rest on our laurels. We get a victory, we rest. The left, they're like a damn Terminator. They don't rest, sleep, eat, feel remorse, nothing like that. They just keep going.
You got to but the
we
thing
can
is,
certainly
take from the Democrat Party.
Yes.
Get over here, and they do that. We need to let the walk away campaign lead the party. Teach us.
Yeah, and he's been effective, and I think Trump has been, with the help of organizations like Walk Away and stuff like that. Trump has been very, very effective because he's exceeded in every state. Florida, 300,000 votes. Florida, that's huge. That's a landslide in Florida. Wisconsin, kind of an anomaly, but we also have some questionable things happening here. Same thing with Michigan and Pennsylvania. He was ahead the whole night by 700,000 votes almost. Yeah. And then, now he's down to 200,000 votes conveniently. And so I want to get to this last thing because we're a little over an hour now. So I want to get this the last thing I want to go through. It's like the biggest losers of the night.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Biggest losers,
Jacqueline, please. I would love. Oh yes, I'm gonna let you guys go because I got a good one. You will love it.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, who wants to go first? Ladies first. Jacqueline, who do you think are the biggest losers?
And what? Just like House votes, or what are we?
Of the night, of election night, or of the election, the consequences of the election.
Okay, you have to elaborate. Are you talking people or what are you? Okay,
people, organizations, anything you want. Who lost big last night?
Oh gosh, I don't even know. I did. I was the biggest loser of the night. I don't even know where to start. I'll start there. Okay? When Arizona turned blue, I felt like the biggest loser of the entire night. I'm like, my home state, here we go, and it turned blue, and I was like, all right, everyone's got to leave. I'm sorry, I gotta go to bed. I need to drink something and go to bed.
That's what you thought. How about you, Ed?
All right, first, before I tell you my biggest loser, Jacqueline, I didn't mean any disrespect to you or anything as we kind of had our disagreement, but biggest loser of the night. It was the pollsters. It was the mainstream media. I love it. That's beautiful. It was the pollsters. It was everybody that said, it was the Nate Silvers of the world. Trump's got a 10% chance of winning. Clearly, that's not the case. Mainstream media, they kept pushing the narrative. You look at it, they really pushed that blue total for Biden on the electoral votes. And they kept pushing it and pushing. They were really trying to eke him over 270. Tried voter suppression. Excuse me. I'm learning how to speak again.
It was deliberate too.
I think it worked a little bit.
Yeah,
it was. It worked a bit, but it didn't go as much as they had hoped. And we're picking up seats in the House, retaining the Senate. Nate Silver, 538.
Oh,
you're fired.
Going. Biggest loser of the night was COVID. I didn't see one single COVID report.
Yeah. Amen.
Is it gone?
There we go.
Is it gone? Are we back on Murder Hornets, or are we on the dumpster fire of election now?
Yeah, it all depends. So now that the headlines are gone now from COVID. I think ultimately,
true.
I mean, what he said, the pollsters definitely. The polls were all on air. A 6-point polling error in Wisconsin. That's gargantuan. Because Biden was supposed to win by 7%, and he only won by 0.8%. Big, obviously, and their Senate predictions were even worse. They were supposed to run away with the Senate. So polling is dead. The industry has died. You even have Frank Luntz, of all people. He predicted a Biden landslide, all that stuff. He said polling is dead because they can't figure out how to get people to be honest with them. A lot of them are trying to blame
the same thing. They're because I thought, but I'm not a poller. I'm not official. If I say something, it's just my opinion. I don't, I didn't go to school for that. But I felt like that Fox was saying the same thing. It's going to be a landslide. And then come to Ev, we're about to fire family for not going out to vote. My brother-in-law, he's not even getting a Christmas gift this year. What do you mean you didn't go vote? You're not even going to get a Christmas card.
Remind me never to piss you off, Jackie. No, but
no kidding. It's at least go to Dollar General for me.
Yeah. But I want last night I was going to be I'll accept the verdict no matter who wins. I'll accept it. I'll be that right now. Mm-hmm. Trump needs to fight this tooth and nail to the very end of his being. He needs to fight this because I would rather lose. I would rather have all the election fraud in the world. Mm-hmm. We need President Trump so we can hold social media accountable. Yeah. They need to be broken up. Twitter, Facebook. No one should have that much power over the control of information.
I agree.
Nobody. And then ultimately,
and you are 100% correct. You are 100% correct. And I was talking about this earlier tonight. I mean, I want people to double down, get another account on the big tech ones, Facebook, social, YouTube, Instagram, you name it, double down on it, get a backup. Then I need you to go to the alternate ones, Park, Minds, Gab, whatever the hell else is out there, Rumble, Library TV. Because they are censoring people. I know personally dozens of people that have had their profiles on Facebook alone purged in the last few days. Absolutely disgusting. Needs to be broken up. Section 230 needs to be reformed. It doesn't need to be done away with. It needs to be reformed.
They need to be held accountable. They need to have rules. I mean, I understand protecting people. If I'm threatening you with violence, Ed. They need to be able to catch that stuff. I get that, but I've
reported abuse against children and child pornography on Facebook. I can't tell you how many times something will get sent to me. I'm what in the world? It's a link to something, and I'll go, and it's a friend show. What the heck? Report this. I'm okay, so we all report it, and it comes back. Nope, it seems as though that's not, whatever content.
Right.
Okay, but my picture of Obama next to the cages on the border got flagged.
Yeah.
So we're really going, I mean, seriously.
Right.
Children in chains, being sold is okay. We're good. That's a problem.
Interesting.
Let me ask you guys a question.
Go ahead.
What do you think happens next? What do we do? Whether Trump wins or loses, what do we do next? And when I say next, let me quantify it.
Because that's the next big loser.
2 years. What do we do over the next 2 years?
The next big loser ties into that. The next big loser is career politicians. They're done.
Yep.
I've heard more people in the last 10 hours say, I'm done. I'm running in 2 years. Terrence Williams was just live a couple minutes ago, or right before I got on here. So it's about an hour ago. But he's like, you know what? I think I'm going to run for state assembly or senator or something because I'm done with this. Like we need real people. We need people that have not made this a career. This is a public service. You don't grow up and go, my whole life I wanted to be a church volunteer. No, you get called to it. You see a need and you step in and say, you know what? I'm going to help out with parking. I'm going to help out with this. My state's screwing up. I need to step in and help. Like that's the point of it. We've made careers of it, which I think is great when you have students that are going into school for law and understanding legislation and getting that education, which is great because a lot of them do it as a service. But it has turned into that. I think that is one of the biggest losers of this election is the career politician. I think they're done.
Well, and that's
what we see it on the right and the left, though. I mean, Glenn Grothman, 20 plus years. I mean, Republican, very solid. I don't want to sound like I'm disparaging him, but I'm sorry. If you're plus 10 years, I think, you run 5 election cycles. That was never the.
And you're making substantial waves and you're just in it. And this is your thing, by all means. But when you're just going unopposed, we have so many people in Kenosha that have gone unopposed.
Yep.
So we're looking around our group of friends like, okay, who's opposing them in 2 years? Who's opposing it? Because it needs to be opposed. We got to stop waiting for someone else to do it.
Well, there's the Wisconsin right now just launched an article. I'm going to pull this up. I have to share this really quick because I just got this. They're naming names. There's a lot of voter fraud investigations happening right now, including Project Veritas. He's got one in Michigan right now that's coming up.
Yeah.
So I got to get that shared. But here's we name names. Did Wisconsin Democrats rig election against Trump? And the state Supreme Court justice expressed concerns over the U.S. Supreme Court might force Wisconsin to actually redo its election to include Hawkins and Walker. What's that? Like Scott Walker? Oh, so never mind. Yeah, because the whole thing is because they removed the people from the ballot and stuff like that. That I think this may ultimately come back to bite them in the ass. I wonder if they could force a redo. That would be interesting. I don't know if
that excites me and scares me at the same time.
It scares me, yeah. But
the backlash of that, would it be worth it at that point? I don't know.
I hope
could Biden do worse than what the rioting would be?
Yeah, but if we can, it depends on what we're able to expose.
Yeah,
and they're going to get motivated to come out.
The bigger issue you're going to encounter if you were to do a redo election is, could you get this done with all the court challenges and everything else by January 20th? Because otherwise you're looking at possibly having Nancy Pelosi as an acting president, and she is chomping at the bit for that one.
Yeah.
Actually, no, January 20th, the Constitution has a provision. You will not, there will be a president on January 20th, even if the House gets to pick it. Guess another silver lining in all this. Guess who gained congressional seats? Minnesota.
Yep.
Republicans picked up a couple congressional seats. And guess how they vote for president if they have to vote for president? By congressional delegation. That means Wisconsin, Minnesota, they'll join the other Republican-controlled states. Republicans still have the advantage on congressional delegations. They do not want it to go there.
Mhm.
Constitutionally, there will be a president on January 20th. And if it goes to the House, it will be Donald Trump.
I didn't know that.
Even
Yeah,
with Pelosi as speaker.
Even with Pelosi as speaker, it specifically says congressional delegation, state congressional delegation. Each
It's
congressman
interesting
will
because
have
I know
one vote.
I know Pelosi was a couple of months ago talking about continuity of government, and that's where that kind of stemmed from. Being that if she's not, or if there's no president by that particular point, no president or vice president, who's next in line? Speaker of the
I
House.
think that applies
So
if they were talking about if Biden were to get COVID, or if he were to go to jail, something in that arena, and he
Right.
was elected, then she would step in with Harris. I believe that would be the correct order.
Mhm.
No, well, Harris is number 2, and then she would go up to number 1, and Harris would appoint the vice president.
Oh.
Yeah, so it won't be, yeah.
In what situation then would it be Pelosi? She did say that. I heard Pelosi say that. I would have to step in. Like, I heard her whole thing. I'm like, oh God.
If anything, it would be a formality until it's appointed. I mean, because we'll still have continuity of government, because number 3 will become number 2 at that point.
Right.
She technically wouldn't be the vice president, but she'll still be number 2 in succession. And then you still have the Secretary of State. So it's,
oh my God,
it's Vice President, President, Secretary of or Speaker, then Secretary of State. No, Speaker, then President Pro Tem of the Senate, then Secretary of State, I think. Oh God, I got to catch up on my constitutional law here. But all right, guys, we're getting a little late here, so I appreciate you guys joining. Ed, you got to get that lag fixed. I wanted to see you two get into a real match here, but no, that's all right.
I have to argue and then stop, let it catch up.
No.
And then give a point, and then I gotta stop and let you catch up.
Yeah,
Italian, I'm not very patient.
it's pause, lag, pause. It's pause, lag, and I gotta tell you, I've seen a lot of stuff that Jackie's been posting out there, and definitely a lot of respect. So I mean, if we disagree on certain things, it is. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm a hothead. Paris will tell you that.
Oh yeah.
I'm not. I'm very cool. I'm like a cucumber.
I'm just hyper. No, but we have. I mean, with Ed.
Ed is sarcasm. If you didn't pick that up, I say what I say, and that's what I said. So
hit and run. No,
there it is.
Yeah, Ed is my. He's my far right guy. I mean, he makes me look liberal, but he's he's very opinionated on things, and he's got a different. I'm more, I guess, borderline libertarian, mainstream kind of conservative, and then Jackie, you're kind of more. I'd say more mainstream. I think I would consider you. You're very pragmatic too. So, and Ed, you like the black and white. You're very black and white in a lot of things where I could see more shades of gray.
And I think there's a lot of things that we can take away from that, though, because there's different perspectives. And
exactly,
Ed is not as white as Paris.
Hey, because I'm Greek.
And so there's just different perspectives, and I'm not
I'm white
in America, so. But I'm also not a person of color. So but I work in these different demographics. And so having those different perspectives and seeing the real crisis and real needs of the lower and middle classes that are real, and there has to be room for color and open eyes to different things and being open to perspective and not just shutting it down or shutting it down so strongly. And I think that's something that Republicans have done really poorly as well, is saying, well, no, there's no reason you should ever be able to have an abortion. It's in your body. It's your, that's not delicate. And that's a delicate issue, and so not to say that that's
and it's funny because
I am pro-life without exceptions. However, there is really delicate ways that we have to be talking about these types of topics as it relates to transgender, as it relates to immigration, as it relates to any of these things. These are sensitive topics for people because they're personal. And so when we're talking like that, you have to pick a gender, that's really insensitive. No matter what your spiritual beliefs are or anything, it's super insensitive. It's repulsing. And it's like the Christians that beat people with Bibles and then want them to get saved. That no one got saved like that. No one was like, yeah, I got hit in the Bible so hard and I just gave my life to Christ. Nobody did that. It's a journey. It's a walk. It's a conversation.
I did. No, I'm just kidding.
Did I throw the Bible at you? Was that me?
And I
beat you with it.
And I can agree with you and disagree with you on certain things. I mean, the science tells you, biology is biology. Okay, put that aside, but generally speaking, whatever you do is what you do. I don't care as long as it doesn't go into my home. You're not forcing it down my kid's throat. You're not doing. I don't have to pay for it, whatever. But I'm also the same guy that says, no, I think liberties in general. When you talk about transgenders, it's like, I get it, gender dysmorphia, but biology is biology. Say whatever you want. That is what it is. And I'm very hardline on that. But, at the same time, it's like, whatever you do in your own bedroom and whatever you do amongst whoever you love, I don't care. Whatever. But I'm also the same guy that says that, what? No, you're not limiting me to I want a magazine for my AR-15 that has 350 million rounds. I think you should be able to own a missile. Second absolute in my eyes. If you want to go driving down the street with a Batmobile or a tank, God bless you. The Second Amendment is pretty absolute. First Amendment, I get it. Don't yell fire in a crowded theater. But, you take a look at cancel culture today. It's like, oh, you hurt somebody's feelings. And it's like, feelings are kind of meant to be hurt to toughen you up. I mean, God forbid you were running out, in the Serengeti back in the day and a saber-tooth tiger was after you. Stop, you're hurting my feelings. You're about to be hurt a lot more than what you thought because you were opposed to the spear.
Okay. I'm going to correct you really quick. Okay. So when you talk about science and biology and then say that feelings are meant to be hurt, I feel like you don't know science or biology. Feelings are completely different than instincts. You don't get sad when a tiger is coming at you. You feel instinct and adrenaline, which would be the biological reaction to that. And those same things apply to transgender, anything like that. If you test a lot of them, they have higher hormone levels. It is. And so I'm not saying that it's right or it's wrong or anything like that, but there are factors to take into account, when saying that. But I also believe that those issues do affect me and do affect my home, because I'm not someone to say, well, whatever you do in your own home is none of my business. Are you having sex with a child? That becomes my business. I don't care if it's my child or not. It's not going to be okay. Do you own a slave?
Yeah. And I would agree with you on that.
Not okay with me. Is it a consensual slave? Still not okay with me. These are things that we have to stop saying.
Slave, kids, tomato.
You do whatever you do, and it's okay with me, because it's not. Now, if you want to love someone that is of age,
I think what you're doing, I think what you're doing is almost like the same argument that the pro-abortion side likes to make. What about the case of life in the mother, incest, blah 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 blah, and do this when it comes to abortion. The genie's out of the bottle. So there's no way you're stuffing it back in. To me, Roe v. with bad law, states' right issue, 10A, but I just don't. When you levy that thing that I don't know science or feelings, well, generally speaking, when it comes to feelings, number one, I don't care, because when that transgender person dies in another, whatever it is they die, and in 300-400 years, when some archaeologist that's a Martian or whatever comes over, digs up their bones, they're gonna find either male or female chromosomes. Paris just. But I get where you're coming from on that. He's like, I can't deal with this.
I'm sorry. I didn't have popcorn, so I just.
Okay, so I'm not voting for anything in concern of
but
digging up bones and finding out, because I still don't think that's something that is notable to go, this needs to be on a ballot because one day an alien's going to find a bone and declare it's a woman when she identified as a woman. It still holds no weight to me. And I'm Christian, so I'm very conservative with what I teach my children and what we do in our home. But as it relates to other people and what,
but I certainly do.
Well, we have,
it's not pro-choice, and it's not pro-choice at all.
But I certainly,
in the end, as conservatives, we certainly do understand where you're coming from. Yeah, but as conservatives, I think what we have to do is we got to avoid being hypocrites in some ways. I'm actually. I struggle because I'm actually someone who's I'm against the death penalty, because I think you're either pro-life or you're not. But on the flip side, I'm also a raving hypocrite, because if someone did something to one of my kids, I'd be a judge, jury, and executioner. But that's more different. Emotional.
That is different. And I'm not saying it's okay to go around slaughtering people who hurt your family, because we've got bullies. I mean, that's not what I'm saying. However, they say the Bible a lot. They quote about like Jesus would never do this. He would never have to bear arms. Okay, when he was attacked in the garden, and they came to the soldier had his ear cut off. Do you think that they just found that sword lying around in the bushes when Jesus was praying? Yeah, the disciples were armed. There were no guns back then. The disciples were armed, and they were protecting Jesus, so those are things that, and I'm not saying that that's the parable that we have to go off of for all of our laws, but just to give examples, when it's self-defense, and if it's defending your child, if it's something like that, where it is a situation where that is necessary, but the prisoner's in jail, it's not going anywhere. At this time, you're not defending anything, you're making a point.
Well, it's awfully expensive, and I think it reduces society to their level if we take their life. But I can understand why there is a death penalty too. I can empathize it.
I can understand why there's a lot of. I think that's more left laws or whatever.
Though, because when you think about what BLM, and I'm talking, when I think about BLM, there's always three factions, but the one that I'm talking about here is the one that legitimately are concerned about Black and people of color, being abused by law enforcement, and take that for whatever you want. But they're looking to solve an ancient question that has been around since the dawn of time, since human around. How to reform the criminal justice system. They've tried it every way from Draco's columns to, phrenology, when they used to fill people's skull to see if they had evolutionary throwback tendencies. They did all kinds of crazy stuff. The insane asylums. There was a line of theory that if you had a longer skull, you were an atavist, an evolutionary throwback, so you not know any better. My whole thing on, I get the biblical perspective. And I've heard that, but they were just doing it on the skull. But there is, when you look at the death penalty in and of itself, it is society's way of saying you have done something so heinous, so horrendous, that you have forfeited your life to a jury of your peers. And I can certainly understand Ferris's, predicament.
I think it's hypocritical. I think that if you cannot rid a human being because they don't bring value to this earth, you can't just do that. You can't and who decides what crime is that heinous? And there is a way to fix the prison system. We just haven't done it because it doesn't bring in money. It's not a money revenue stream like the prison system is set up to be right now.
Right.
If you increase crimes that are laid against women and children and sex crimes, those types of crimes, battery crimes, and decrease drug crimes, right, you have a completely different system. You have a completely different clientele because it just shifts. Those types of crimes are in different communities, and Black men actually are a lot less likely to commit those crimes than drug crimes. You would see an entire population shift. And typically people with drugs, they need counseling. Not saying it shouldn't.
There's more to it. Yeah, there's more to it than just a drug. Why are they doing that? What's happening in their lives? Everything has to be dealt with. I don't see everything as black and white in the figurative sense. I always see it as it depends on the situation. We got to know. We got to know everything. And what can we do? Okay, what will this punishment do? But after they're done being punished, then what can we do to get them back into society instead of just saying, okay, you're done with your term, go back to society? It doesn't work that easily.
I can give you an example. So we have a pretty small, tight-knit group in Kenosha because we're foster parents and we know all the foster parents. We get involved in a lot of child cases we see in the news. I'll text around like, who's got this kid? Because if the child was taken into care, chances are we keep in touch with each other. It's a really great community. And we need 40 more foster parents in Kenosha County if anyone's interested. Anyways. And then we have no kids out of home placement. They would all be in a home and not in a shelter. It would be fantastic. It would be the first time ever.
In a perfect world. And there's other things we could do to help.
So we had a single mom have her child taken away because she was working in the bar underneath her apartment. And so she was serving and the baby got into something. I think he was like 3 or 4 and he had got into something in the middle of the night. And it spilt and something had happened. He got like a cut on his foot or something. And someone said, well, this has happened and she neglected her child. Did she? Yes. She left a 4-year-old at home alone all night. Granted, she was just downstairs, but she was there. She had no daycare resources. She had zero help. She's short on cash. She needs to pay her rent. She was out of options. Not saying it's okay, but now we've got her trying to pay funds and and she's digging herself now in a deeper hole. And then you have someone who murdered his child and is getting 12 years.
Yeah.
Explain that to me.
And I think that's, and that's the thing that frustrates the hell. And you mentioned
resources.
You mentioned this young lady, and I don't want to tip my hand too much as to what I do professionally. But when it comes to the bar business, I know a lot, like disturbingly, a lot of people that are like the individual that you had talked about. These are individuals that are struggling, trying to ends meet, and they live on tips and other things like that. And I think it's absolutely disgusting that an individual like that could lose their kid. You could have somebody who's molesting a child. And by the way, I understand where you guys are coming from, anti-death penalty, but I'm sorry, you molest a child, to me, I think you should be put down like as soon as your trial's done. I'm very absolute and I'm unapologetic as far as that is concerned. However, you got due process, all that other good stuff. But you got somebody who's going to molest a child, they get 4 years in prison, but I can go out there and kick some puppies and I'm going to end up being in jail for the next 15 to 20 years.
Yeah,
there are issues there in the criminal justice problem in the system because
revenue.
I think it's even worse because there is certainly
look what's happened recently.
Complex, but then you take a look at just how wide the United States is. Every state has different laws, so there's an issue there, and I think there needs to be some kind of codification that says, you're not going to get a lesser penalty because of your color or where you're at. Horrible thing to a kid. Here's your penalty. So,
but if you increase,
I got a little too fast.
Increase the sentencing. So, for example, Donald Trump increased the statue attacking or whatever to 10 years. Increased it. You touch a federal statue, that is 10 years. Statue stopped being touched. because the sentencing was so awful.
Yep.
It's not worth it. Right now, it's a slap on the wrist if you can prove it.
Yeah, but on the flip side, you also
Mhm.
have the opposite though, where we're over punishing for the wrong crimes too, like the people that are requiring the First Step Act. The reason why we needed the First Step Act, which Donald Trump and then bipartisan passed it, people were getting sent to prison for marijuana possession in a lot of cases.
That's what I'm saying. Lower those sentencing.
Yeah,
that's why this has become such a money revenue, just disgusting industry. And they take your right to vote. They take away, then you've got this record for the rest of your life. You can't get a job. So what are you going to get back into?
Yep.
Something that doesn't require a background check.
And what's funny about that is that what's interesting when you look in the state of Wisconsin, what are the two biggest things that prevent people from getting hired? It is people that can't pass a piss because they weren't smart enough to join the day before.
Right.
And individuality records. And when I used to work for American TV back in the day, and I worked in their warehouse. I was a supervisor in their warehouse out in Pewaukee. And one of my strong best guys was a guy who spent 20 years in jail and murdered somebody. From what he tells me with passion, I don't know, but the fact of the matter is that he killed somebody. He did his time. He did whatever he did, but he came back and that man, he had nothing but hustle. And when I said something, he got everyone jumping.
Well, once you pay your debt to society, you should pay that should be paid at that point. You know, but that's where we that's where we need, but
yes, sir.
You know, that depends on, judges undercharge certain people and then they overcharge others. Best argument, Melina, I don't know if she's still listening. That's actually my daughter, but great point. You know, death penalty, the time it takes to get to the full process with the endless appeals and everything like that, it's cheaper to just lock them up and throw away the key.
Totally.
It's impossible to put someone to death.
And we go through that in foster care. Because parents will either contest or someone else will do something. And then it takes all the lawyers, the guardians at Lighthouse, like all the people and clerks and reporters, like all of the things that take place in government time and salaries to produce this. And you're paying jurors. And it takes so much. It's not just, file an appeal. It's just some paperwork. It's not. It's $80,000 to $100,000 of garbage.
Oh, yeah. And and how often have they been wrong?
That's ridiculous.
I mean, the state of Illinois kind of dumped their death penalty a few years ago, like a decade or more ago.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden they're doing DNA testing, and all these people are getting freed from death row because DNA evidence was figured out. Thank goodness.
And the things that I've seen as far as people who abuse children in any kind of way when they go into jail, when they're in there,
there's justice
they're begging for the death penalty because nobody. It basically is a death penalty. I'm not rejoicing in that, but it does give you a weird sense of. I'm not going to say it.
They have an honor code.
Take that information for what it is.
I'll say it for what it is. I think it's really interesting because you take a look at those people that are in prison. And my issue with folks in prison in general is that, you got this prisonization process. You spend 10 years in there. It's like watching Shawshank, man. Everybody is Brooks. You don't know what you're going to do with yourself when you get out. But I think it's just so interesting because you can get somebody who killed like 3 dudes in a bar fight with a pistol. And all of a sudden he's like roomed up with a dude who's a pedophile, and they wake up in the morning, they do their like morning count, and the pedophile is like, where is he? I don't know. Last time I saw him, he's like in the toilet, and he's literally in the toilet. I just think it's fascinating because like those folks don't play when it comes to like child crimes or anything like that.
Or racial crimes.
Yeah, I might be a person, but right. It's like we're not doing that. We don't do that.
But if you see like the times that these people get, I mean, there was a guy that just came out and like we all got like a letter in the mail. So at my old house that this child predator is moving to our neighborhood. We're like, what? And I looked him up. He was in there for 18 months, I think. It was like 7 different kids. How is that okay? How is that our system?
That fell through the cracks a few times, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's
but it
messed
does,
up.
and this is not rare. This is not a rare situation.
But there has to be a caveat with that, because okay, you've got an 18-year-old high school student, or let's say 18-year-old, he's a freshman in college, and then he ends up meeting a 17-year-old who's still in high school, and suddenly, didn't know that she was 17 or whatever, and suddenly she rats him out, and suddenly he has a record for life as a sex offender, even though it was kind of like that has to be tempered.
What was that story that happened
catch the people who are
ago?
sick.
Well,
what was that story about almost 20 years ago, where
maybe get to know someone a little better?
There was a young man.
Yep.
But what was that story? I'm going to say roughly about 20 years ago, under Tommy Thompson, when he was governor, there was a young man. He was like 19, 20 years old. His girlfriend was like 16, 17 years old. They had a baby together. And under state law, they ended up arresting him. And the biggest crime of it was they were together as a loving family and put on the sex offender registry. And if I recall correctly, I want to say Thompson pardoned him, but he didn't change the fact that he was still on the registry.
Oh, he commuted the sentence.
And it's like, okay, you gotta, right. It's like, you gotta give some leeway on that, in the sense that they're still together. Like, this is an actual family, and you're breaking it up. And not only you're breaking it up, but you're ruining any prospects for this to be a prosperous family.
What was the age difference?
That's a good point. I think maybe 3-4 years.
And she was 16.
And
they were in high school together at some point.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd have locked him up. I'm not finding compassion in that story. 16 and 20 years old. No, you're locked up.
I don't think they were that far apart. I think it was like a year apart.
But I think they had met in high school, and they were dating in high school.
I'm going to have to take Melina out for a coffee.
Yeah, Melina,
you're going to degree is focused in is mental health. And that is something that I feel is extremely lacking in all of our judicial systems. It's a problem in our our social work and humanitarian crisis. I mean, we're not focusing on the mental health. We're asking them, well, did you use the resources we gave you for housing?
Yeah.
Did you check to see if they're having some anxiety? We've seen anxiety go up right now. I mean, tremendously, to the point where
especially since COVID.
And these women are trying to balance how to, and not just women, men too, but trying to balance kids and school changes and job changes and rent and getting evicted and all of these things that are happening. But did you use the 20-step program that we gave you to get some rental relief? It's like, no. I mean, it's not easy to get access to it. And if you're lucky enough to have mental health coverage on private insurance or even Badger Care or anything like that, you've got maybe 6-7 sessions is about average. That's it.
Right.
And then you're paying out of pocket, which is anywhere from $60 to $120 an hour.
Well,
you're struggling to keep your lights on. That's not a top priority.
Well, that's an issue with the healthcare system too, and as a whole, is we have such a reactive system. There is no holistic medicine where there is, but it's not emphasized. Where you got to treat people holistically with mind, body, soul thing, and because
one of the things I'm really excited about.
This is the most important healing organ.
Yeah. We're training in telehealth, and so that's going to be my focus for the next 9 months. But not focus, but side focus of my other 20 focuses, but is learning that system, because I think that telehealth is something that is really going to take over all of mental health crisis. It really is, because you can get it done early in the morning if you want to talk to a therapist on your way to work, lunch break, or maybe on your way home, weekends, nights. Like, this is going to become way more available, and at rates that are being pushed right now for it to be covered like it would be if you had a sprained ankle and needed physical therapy for 2 years and injections and everything else. I've got more family members that are getting those, what is that, the injection in their spines and hip and everything, cortisone. Yeah.
Yep, cortisone.
For years.
Yeah.
It's like a physical therapy. Why is that not taken seriously with serious, reactive depression disorders and, or not reactive, major depression is what it's called. Major depression disorders or anxiety.
And we have to do that with police departments too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of the problems when you got, especially in some of these urban areas where they're seeing death and destruction day in and day out, that's got to really mess with someone's head.
They're already down there. Imagine a world where mental health is actually taken care of.
Yeah.
Seriously. How many of those people are going to be, a lot less of them running around on the street? So if someone is acting insane, the cop can react in their natural way, not natural, but in a way that's like, hey, my life is at risk, not thinking this person is schizophrenic, because they can't think they're going to lose their own lives, if they start going, well, do you have a mental illness I should know about before we engage? Mm-hmm. It's just not, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Well, we're always reacting and we're not being proactive. And I think that's part of it's got to change. And hopefully, in more mental health, we'll get the people who are showing signs of violence. Melina, you're being brilliant tonight. I love it.
I like it.
That's fine. But when someone gets mentally ill, gets a license to carry, it's not a good combination. And I agree. I think there has to be the guy who did the high school in the shooter in Florida.
Yeah.
Parkland.
Parkland. He was a failure of the system.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with the gun, had nothing to do honestly had nothing to do with the sheriff who sat behind his car instead of going in, but it had to do with mental health. He was flagged and nobody followed up on it.
When we have adults that are unable to make those types of decisions, and we know that they're on the edge, if they're not living with someone or have someone checking in on them, not saying that they got to be guarded all the time.
No.
A constant check. Who is responsible for you? If they don't have that, they need an adult social worker. It's just as simple as that. Someone needs to be accounting for this person because they cannot account for themselves. So the schizophrenia diagnosis has skyrocketed in the last 5 years. I know more.
Take a look at all the other mental health issues that have skyrocketed over the years. I mean, everything from autism, schizophrenia. Who was that one guy who ended up charging the cop with a knife? Mm-hmm. And everyone's questioning the officer who shot him and killed him. And I don't know about you guys. I love my guns. I call them my toys. They are my instruments, and I have nothing but fear and respect for them. I fear them because of what they can do. I respect them because of what they do, but they're my toys because they bring me peace and when I to the range. And I pray to God I never have to use them because, I don't think anybody in their right frame of mind ever wants to take another life. No. However, if you come at me with a knife, the probability of you taking me out, there's that adage that they say, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Guess who wins usually, knife versus a gun? It's usually the knife. And unfortunately, I think this is where the failure in a lot of social services systems, they're no checkup, follow through. And I think a lot of that's because it's an overburden of the system. And I tell you, like I was saying earlier, I'm very laissez-faire as far as what people do. You do you, God, as long as you're not hurting anybody, doing anything over the top, God bless you. Do you be your best version of yourself. The problem there is so
more responsibility.
2020 COVID, we have the levels of alcoholism. And I love alcohol. I love the science behind it. bourbons are my friend. I enjoy them extensively because
scientist.
I know a lot about them. But drugs, they've skyrocketed. Let's
Mm.
say again.
I don't know. We're kind of getting a delay again. Oh, he's actually
Yeah,
frozen.
no, I missed that point. But the thing, but the suicide rate is through the roof. It scares me to my core. I'm watching people that are they're shooken right now. They're scared. And the worst part about it is that they don't know if they're going to have a job or not. And that leads them to these, I guess you can call them dark alleys.
Mm-hmm.
What's being done to help these folks? And I think at this point, nothing.
Yeah. And that's
maybe I'm wrong.
Like Bill just said, he's not saying there's not a penalty, but jail does nothing to stop drug addiction and addicts.
Nope.
This is
get them clean, but that's
we're
couple day issue. I mean,
yep. And then if we, obviously, Melina, you're on fire tonight. I love it. I raised her right. She's got brains. Okay. To protect, but I say legalize all drugs. I struggle with this one because I had, if we want to do something in your own house, but drugs are not, they hurt other people. Yeah. Just like alcohol too, alcohol done badly can harm other people.
Well, here's the thing. Having and using my gun properly can't hurt anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Using heroin properly never protects anybody. My guns protect people if they need to.
Yeah.
Heroin doesn't.
Yeah.
No. Heroin destroys families.
Agreed.
Heroin causes people to do things
100%
that will just distract. That's it. There's no benefit. There's no, I'll just have one drop of it and I'll be fine. Wrong.
Yeah, but there are people who, like I agree with Tracy saying, two people that have amazing support group and the addict was refusing to get help. There are some people who just cannot be helped.
Well, there should be an option. Get help and that should be something that's offered.
Exactly. If you get help, we'll clean up your record, but then there should be a way for somebody to work off that record. Okay. If you could stay clean for 2 years, you know what? We'll actually remove that as long as it's not if they didn't kill somebody or do something bad, it's got to be tempered with common sense. But
I think my husband and I were talking about it, that if it applies to the job that you're working, they probably need to know. But if it doesn't, if I got a DUI 3 times, but I'm applying to be, a data entry person, I don't feel like that impacts my job.
Right.
But if I'm wanting to deliver the mail and work for the post office, perhaps that could impair the job, and that's kind of an important job. So, I think that if it's relative to the information,
Yeah,
exactly. And I think, I
have to agree with you 100% on that because it for my particular job, I spent a lot of hours on the road, and I was talking about, alcohol and bourbon and how much I love that, but I don't play when it comes to alcohol. It's no joke. I enjoy the science behind it, but at the same time, I don't play on the road. There's no such thing as drinking and driving. I have a sip of something. I will not get on the road because what happens is that's going to jeopardize my income. And God forbid that, something should happen to me or somebody else, so I have to agree with you 100% on that if you're having a DUI and that doesn't reflect on your job, then you shouldn't be terminated. You shouldn't be, not allowed opportunities.
I don't even think it should show up.
So, that's certainly,
like the background check. I agree. I don't like marijuana. I don't like to smoke it. I don't want it in my house. I want nothing to do with it. I don't like the smell of it. However, medicinal purposes, I think, need to be investigated. I think that needs to be tested. I think that there's a lot that we don't know and a lot of things that we could potentially be able to get people off of pharmaceuticals. I see that, the opioid crisis was manufactured.
Yep.
I don't think that was a surprise when people were addicted to it. I feel like they knew that was a side effect. And it hurt a lot of people, especially low income and Black community.
It's a form of control.
It really is.
By design.
And if you look, so just because I don't like it.
If you look at,
it's just like Planned Parenthood, the same thing.
Yeah. I thought you were saying
if you look at opium, though.
Yeah.
If you look at opium and the history of opium, it's always been used as a control method. It's kind of like Brave New World and Soma. It's a thing to kind of placate people. Marijuana, God, I could not agree more on it. If you look at the history of marijuana and why criminalized, that'll blow your mind. But it should never have been a Schedule I drug.
Never.
I mean, like,
I agree.
It's putting marijuana in the same category as an opioid. It's like, dude,
it's different things.
Like crazy withdrawals. And I've never smoked weed, but I've known a lot of people who have, and it's like, it's cost me a lot of Doritos, So it's like, why do we have one?
It was like the 1960s. The most spoken word in the 1960s was the word ear. Did you know that?
Ear.
No. Ear.
You're fired.
I'm fired. I love it. But on that note, I think, oh my God, we're at 2 hours, but that's all right. This has been a great discussion. I love the people interacting. We went from talking about the election to drugs and rehabs and changing our, and all this ties in because whoever ultimately ends up winning, it looks like President Trump will likely prevail, but Joe Biden might too. There's a path for both of them.
Yeah.
Whoever ends up, we've got a very divided country. We've got a lot of issues that we're going to be faced. I forgot to tell you guys my biggest loser. I know the media and all that stuff, but the biggest loser in last night's election, socialism. It lost. There was, whether Biden win or lose, Trump win or lose, socialism lost. The Congress did not shift. We're still the same makeup, basically. 1 seat difference in the Senate, maybe 4 seat difference in the House. Mm-hmm. We're still a divided government, no matter what.
Yeah. No, that's true. I was waiting for the explanation of that because I wasn't following how it lost. I feel like it's still fighting. But no, I guess that's a good point. We still have the Senate seats and that.
It could have gone a whole different direction yesterday. I mean, with the very makeup really of our country could have changed.
And I think that's underestimated a lot. So I think that's a really good point because I've got a lot of friends. I mean, even text me since we've been sitting here, like, I don't know what to do. It's like, it's such a good thing to remember. We haven't completely lost. Even if we lose, we haven't completely lost.
Right.
It's hopefully not going to be the end of America. Hopefully. And I think that, again, the biggest takeaways are that we have, no more career politicians. We have people rising up wanting to do things. We fight harder. We continue to work and be pro-life. And pro-life isn't just saving the unborn because it's the whole life. How can we get into soup kitchens and volunteer and reach people that we haven't reached before? Are we volunteering? Are we getting out there? Are we being humanitarian? The Republican Party was formed by the oppressed to liberate Black people and women. This is why it was formed.
Yep.
So if we can hold on to that and remember that as we are going out and championing these people, because in the end, if we don't, we will all be oppressed. That will be all of us.
Yeah, it really will be all of us. I think the bigger the government, the more powerful it is. That old cliche, a government big enough to to give you everything you have or need is big enough to take everything you have, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, bad paraphrase. It's late. Late last night. I'm tired, but no,
it's on point though, man.
It is.
It's definitely on point. And what I love about that is that this is where I think a lot of us, especially going forward, we have an opportunity. I often preach about, becoming the best version of yourself. I was talking with my brother on air last night, and we were talking about just some of the things that we project about ourselves. Like, I see myself as an actual real life superhero. Like, I'm not like, smashing down walls. I'm not
But that's
flying
just
through the
because you wear
air.
your underwear on the
Okay.
outside.
I thought Paris had
I
a
wear
big
my
ego.
underwear. Well, hear me out on this. Hear me out on this. And I think, Jackie, when you're, but I think when you're done, when I'm done here, you'll understand though. What would you
Try me.
do if you could have a conversation with somebody? Okay. What would you do if you could have a conversation with somebody to change their life? To get them to understand that they can be more than what they really are. It may be a simple conversation for you, but it might be the conversation that literally stops them from doing the cutting thing that is a cry for help versus the one that goes up and down, that goes deep into the veins. You see, that's what I want for people. I want you to not consider cut up and down. I don't want you cutting the cry for help. Let's have that conversation. What can I do to help you become a better version of yourself? And my motivation is not to make me better. It is simply, what can I do to contribute to everybody, right, left, center, whatever. I don't care. I don't need a thank you, a pat on the back. I just need to know that at some point you're going to pay that forward to somebody else. And the silver lining that I look at all of this here, win, lose, or draw, we have an opportunity right now, all of us, through this conversation. We can say some of the most crazy things, and I'll say whatever. You guys know, well, Paris knows me. Jackie, you're getting to know me. But I will tell you this, and at some point, you'll either agree with me, disagree with me. Maybe you'll get some understanding. You don't have to completely be 100% on board, but you'll now understand where I'm coming from. And if we can take that type of message and bring it forward to people, especially here in the state of Wisconsin, and get them to believe more in themselves, to better themselves, to create value, not just in terms of monetarily, but within themselves, their homes, their families, and then hopefully that spreads to their community
what the
and they
point
can
was. It's getting
pay that
out.
for other people.
It's being
What's
pro-life.
that?
It's being pro-life. It's finding value in every person's life, and serving and volunteering, and getting out, getting to the demographics that we normally don't get to because we don't think about it. We think that someone else is doing it. I think that we get busy with work and kids and life, and we think about that like, oh, I'm sure someone is serving the homeless shelter food tonight. Have you called and asked?
Yeah.
Because they're usually kind of needing that, and anytime I've called and asked, they do. So we have actually worked with our shelters down here that every Christmas Eve, that's what we do. That's where we spend Christmas Eve, and so there's things that we can do bigger, though, as a pro-life community, as a conservative community, to value every single life.
Right. And that's the beauty of it. And I think if we were to take that and then extrapolate that with our conservative beliefs, right, we could turn this state so incredibly red that you will forget every other state on the spectrum, because there is value in service if we are willing to give just a little bit. We're not asking you to give all, just a little bit.
Well, and we've got to stop pushing. I think ultimately, and both sides, quite frankly, need to stop pushing. I'm just sick. It's somebody put up a meme. It's like, no matter who you vote for today, you'll still be my friend tomorrow. That kind of thing. We got to start
doing a tally, because I've been blocked a couple times or like defriended. I'm like, we were friends a couple days ago. I'm like, what did I say? I have not deleted a single person.
Right.
I've not blocked anybody.
Exactly. Yeah, I've got friends who have voted for Joe Biden. Yep. It's their right to do it, and I celebrate that. Whatever.
It would be a really sad day. You didn't have the right to do that.
My daughter did. It's like, I'm not going to sit and hate on my daughter because we disagree on a political candidate. Because you know what? I could. She formulated it on her own. I taught her to think for herself, as I taught all my kids to do it. But people have got to stop. We got to get back to discourse again, where we can have a conversation, disagree with each other, and then, like you said, go out and have a beer after, whatever. It just, we got to get beyond this. And this is going on long before Trump. Quite frankly, I think the big shift started to happen around Bill Clinton versus H.W. Bush.
The shift is the cancel culture. If I don't agree with you, I stop purchasing. We were at the Trump bus, the Women for Trump bus last weekend, and there was a couple people I was sitting with, and I don't drink beer. I don't like it, and I think it all tastes like different flavors of just nastiness, and so it's gross.
I agree with you, actually.
It's actually so disgusting.
I'm on board.
My kids just found out like maybe a year or two ago that people drink beer because they thought it was just an ingredient for cooking. So I make like beer bread and stuff. But anyways,
Yep.
So they were sitting there and they're having spotted cow, and I don't know anything about that drink at all. But I know it's a beer, but this woman, I mean, she got so angry. She was like, how dare you drink that? The owner is liberal. And then she pulls out her Apple phone and takes a picture of it. I was like, I'm sorry, is that an Apple? I was like, do you want to talk about this? And we're going to be like, super, like, freaking out over a beer. How much did that phone cost you? $1,000? This was like $3. Let's really we are not the cancel culture. Okay? We're Republicans, conservatives, libertarians. We are not the cancel culture.
Do you remember when Target did their whole?
This is a Starbucks cup. I bought it.
Do you remember when Do you remember when Target did their whole thing about like the genderless bathrooms, and then everybody like pushed back against it, and it's not something I'm cool with, but then again, Walmart also has like a family bathroom, but and I'm not going to lie. You can go to a Quick Trip, and if the men's bathroom is busy and I really got to do something, I'm going to go into the women's bathroom. So I guess, but it was funny because everyone's like,
don't go to any Quick Trips, ladies, in Oshkosh. Don't.
Just, at least for 15, 20 minutes. But it was funny. It was funny because everybody was like, boycott Target. And I'm like, why?
What was nice about that?
Well, you're not going to boycott Target.
It's really short for those
What's that?
weeks for me. The checkout lines were really short for me those weeks. That they canceled going to Target.
Right,
there was no one there. It was so nice. Then people were like, okay, this is stupid, and started shopping again, which was great, but it was unfortunate for me because long lines. But
long lines, and that's why I didn't get it. I was like, I'm not going to boycott something. How do I boycott something I don't shop at? Like Target's too, it's like when I do a price by price comparison, it's like, I'm not going to overspend on something. So it's like, whatever.
Literally
NFL,
anything.
I don't watch the NFL.
Target is like my sanctuary. Okay, that's where we go for girls' night. Don't start Target bashing. Okay.
Yeah, no, I have no.
I'm sorry. Target. I apologize.
Yeah, but boycotts, I don't think boycotts ultimately work. And you're hurting someone else. It's not like the
You're
owner of
people.
like the head of Starbucks. Okay, he's very liberal or whatever, and don't go to Starbucks. They're liberal. No, I mean there's people. The barista at my local Starbucks here. I found out over time he noticed I was looking at the Drudge Report. He's like, I love the Drudge Report, and it turns out he's a diehard conservative. I would have never thought that. Yep. He had piercings and everything else. It's like you can't judge. Yeah, you can't judge people. It affects people. Boycotts I think do work when let's say a company is, the owner of the company said they're pro-America. Okay, fine, and people start boycotting them. We can boycott and we can go to shop to those places and they do well. That kind of thing. Like kind of like. But in the end, I think
Goya hard. They're like, stop the Goya. I'm like, we bought all the Goyas. Like this.
We bought Goya.
Now we're gonna do the lime. Now we're gonna do the cumin. I mean, we were just testing all different flavors, but
it was good stuff.
It was good stuff.
Well, anyway, guys, we're really pushing the envelope here. I got to get going. I'm still recovering from last night. I'm sure you guys were up late as well.
Yeah.
and they're still, the election's not over. It'll end up being, it'll be in the hands of the lawyers now. Unfortunately, it's sad for that. But it is what it is. It'll get figured out. But and
I think
those
we just
people
need to remind our Republican friends to be graceful and just be graceful. No
Exactly.
temper tantrums. Like once it's done, it's done. Try in private, not in public. I just don't.
Yeah, if it's like I said, I'll accept it. I'm not I wouldn't be happy about it if Joe Biden ultimately won. But you know what? That's our process. We win some, we lose some. But it needs to be legal.
Is a biological. What did you say?
It needs to be legitimate. That's my issue. It just has to be legitimate. None of these. Oh, let's see how many votes we can find.
I'm just saying, biological or not, I don't think anyone on the right is going to be melting down on the street. I don't think anybody's going to be wearing pink hats that look like Meg Griffin.
I'm teasing you.
I know, but I'm just saying we're not going to run around with pink, Meg Griffin hats or anything like that. And
I don't know what that is.
Life will go on. Life will go on.
Yes, it will.
And I had
the country will survive.
I had a conversation with somebody earlier too. It will survive. I had a conversation with somebody earlier tonight. We were talking about just how you react to certain things. We can choose to despair, or let's do something positive.
And Donald Trump is the epitome of that.
I know which route I want to do.
The very first episode of The Apprentice, what did they do? They made lemonade. When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. I learned that from The Apprentice and Donald Trump. I mean, it's the same thing. I think in the end, I think he will.
I never even heard of that show until he ran for president. I'm not even gonna lie. My mom said Donald Trump is running for president 2015 or what. I'm like, who? I had no idea who that was.
Well, I loved the show, and he was a guy who had his share of hard times too. He almost lost everything, and he bounced back and whatever. So, I like that story about him. Yeah, he's a Queens, New York loudmouth. I mean, I get that he's not, but Joe Biden isn't the sweet, innocent old man either. He's a politician, and he's been a politician for 50 years almost. He's got some skeletons in the closet, and we're quickly finding out about that. And Kamala's no angel either, but in the end, it's
is what it is.
It is what it is. But I'm bummed that it's close like this. Because Trump wins, it'll be 274. Biden wins, it'll be 270.
Yeah.
No one's ever won with 270. The closest one was George Bush in 2000. It was 271. So but people got to.
Mm-hmm.
We just gotta chill out, and we'll figure it out.
Yep.
It'll happen. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Ed Delgado and Jacqueline DeCly. So I will talk to you guys later, and I'm sure we will be in touch as we go along. So, and I love it. Thanks to all you people who chimed in tonight, Shannon and Melina and Bill, and let's see who else is in here. We got lots of Bill, and Mary and John Paul. I know Carolina was on there for a little while.
While they were on.
Well, you can have the feed on a Facebook feed. But
that's really cool.
But you can watch that, but make sure your volume is turned down on the Facebook feed, because you'll have the volume. So you got to be careful with that. So, and Ed.
No, on the side.
I had to disable Bluetooth on that one.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. It was awesome conversation.
Thank you very much.
We'll be on again as we go along.
Good night, guys. You guys have a phenomenal week.
You too. Bye. Right. So that was Ed and Jackie. So it was fun, and we will see you guys later. Thank you all for chiming in, and election's not over yet. It's close. And for those idiots out there say my vote doesn't matter. Hello. It's close. Could mean anything. So, but in the end, we'll prevail one way or another. The country will go on. Either way, the Republicans have the Senate. The Democrats have the House of Representatives. We have divided government. Not a lot's going to get done. And that's actually, oddly enough, it's by design. The government's weak by nature. So I'm just trying to be, trying to be pragmatic about this. And it's going to be a great week. The rest of the week, and the sun will rise tomorrow. Have an awesome night. I'll talk to everyone soon. Good night. Bye.